All right, I'm joined in the studio now by Colman Noctor, child and adolescent psychotherapist at St. Patrick's Hospital. Colman, welcome to the programme. Bullying has been around of young people since time immemorial, but it was usually some fella, hit your box or whatever. Now it is much more insidious, much more anonymous because of social media. So how does the bullying actually take place so that a parent might recognise it or might understand the effect on their child?
I think the whole engagement with social media is new to everyone. We're just trying to work it out. And I think it's important to kind of understand what bullying is. And bullying is a persistent attempt to torment somebody with the knowledge that it's doing so. So again, it's different from banter, where somebody, you might have two people in a playground who are calling each other names or slagging, and once it's pointed out to somebody that that's hurting the other person, they stop. But bullying is a very intentional act that is carried out deliberately to persecute or torment or cause harm to the other person. And I guess how it's changed now, as I say, bullying's been around for years, but the platform is different. So the impact is different, the anonymity is different. So the profile of the bully is actually different.
But the bullying is mental rather than physical. I mean, bullying used to be a physical activity. I mean, if you think of the great book Tom Brown's School Days, the idea of prefects and fags in the old English public school where they beat the fag. I mean, it was all about physical. It's quite interesting. Somebody like me this weekend on Twitter, I would certainly consider I was being bullied by certain people. The difference was I didn't care. But then I'm not a child or an adolescent. So, I mean, all I do is, I just retweet the bullying and but children can't do that.
It's very difficult. I mean, I think some young people would prefer to get beaten up than the social isolation or exclusion or embarrassment that's oftentimes caused by the online issue. So, and oftentimes it's a threat of violence. You're dead tomorrow, or there's an anticipation that someone is waiting for them outside of school, and this is communicated at 12 o'clock at night the night before, so the child doesn't sleep that night, anticipating they're on edge. So there's oftentimes a threat of violence in it, but it's the social currency that's lost. So you set up a dedicated web page to slag off George Hook, and you get 300 people signing up to it and making their comments and making their likes and all that sort of stuff.
What you seem to be suggesting is that we're getting a herd mentality, that one person sets up a website to talk about the fact that George Hook is fat or bald or whatever, and 300 other people come on board, but they might not necessarily have come on board had the first person not thought up the webpage or blog.
Absolutely, and I think one of the major issues with the cyberspace is the likes, and it's the trending element of it. So when we're looking at tackling cyberbullying, I think the best approach is to talk to the bystander, get the other kids not to like it. Because if I'm a bully and I set up my anti-George Hook website and nobody signs up to it and tumbleweeds, then that's going to stop me doing it. Whereas if I make a derogatory comment to you on Twitter and I get 17,000 retweets or whatever it might be, then I'm going to do it more.
All right. Now the next problem is, because I don't think we can stop it, so combating it or lessening the effect and so on. Parents are in the front line. Parents have no idea. So the first thing they do, I can imagine, the first thing I'd do is confiscate the offending instrument, the phone or the iPad. That's not a good idea.
No, it's not. It's in terms of in my work, that's the number one reason young people will say they don't tell, is because if I tell my mum, then my Facebook is gone, and I don't know what's going on and what's being said about me, but also everything happens online, the invites to things, the gossip, the news. Now, I mean, there's an interesting piece in Dana Boyd talked about that we've created the online space because we don't allow young people to congregate in physical spaces now, and so the drive for privacy.
Like like the school playground.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, she's talking about kind of these constraints on young people spending time together, and parents not allowing people to, to hang out unsupervised. That adolescents have always wanted to be unsupervised. The whole reason that they go online and they don't really heed the warnings around privacy and governmental warnings and their jobs down the line is because they want to get away from parents, teachers, and authority that are close to them, not necessarily.
But parents now are terrified they're going to be snapped up and sold in the white slave traffic or whatever, whereas our parents didn't. They just said, get out of here and kick a football for the next 3 hours until I call you for your dinner.
Absolutely, and I think that's one of the side effects of a culture where we do need to have high levels of safety. And I think young people see the online safety on behalf of parents as a way to monitor them. They don't see it as a kind of a way to protect them.
All right. Should there be surely sanctions then? If you discover that somebody is doing this, do you have a sanction?
Again, sanctioning an adolescent who's finding their own feet, experimenting with interpersonal interactions is a question we have in terms of even I think criminal law. If somebody should be punished to the length.
Sure enough, of expulsion, for argument's sake.
Absolutely not. I mean, I think I'm absolutely in favour of sanction, but I guess it's we have to look at how we engage with online behaviour, and we have to get my push is to get into primary schools, get young people earlier, to get them to learn how to negotiate this platform. They don't understand. I mean, I go back to Niall Horan, one of the One Direction people, said that he had a girlfriend and he was getting numerous death threats in response to that from 13-year-old girls. I'm not so sure that that's what they were going to follow through on, but these young people have this platform and this, portal into the real world.
But it's slightly away from children, but I mean, if children have a Facebook page, George Hook has a Twitter page. Now, I'm really thrilled that at the last count it's 94,000 people, and, I want it to be 100 but I am actually inviting, there's more chance of me being bullied from 94,000 than there is from 4,000. So therefore, if your child has a Facebook page or whatever, the chances of him or her being bullied gets greater.
Yeah, but as social beings, we love feedback. We love to hear what people think of us, both good and bad. And as an adolescent who's learning their own personalities, these Ask FM and feedback websites are, they're almost the draw and magnetism to hear what people have to say is huge. And so young people are drawn to these types of feedback websites.
I'm trying to think of when I was that age, but when I was 13 or 14, and I'm having my first interest in girls, and then this spot appears on my face always when you're likely to meet a girl. Now, if that spot were magnified 500 times on the internet, everybody said, that spotty bugger G Hook, then I might have had, it was bad enough to have it, in front of 10 people. Now to have it all over the place would have been disastrous for me at 13 or 14.
And it is, and it's devastating from the point of view of the young people who are victims of this. I see it every day, young people who are, sleepless nights, they have self-esteem problems, even drawing towards self-harm, the social exclusion that is created by it. It can have a massive impact on their lives, and the 24/7 relentlessness of it can really have a damaging part on quite a fragile personality.
Much as your expertise is important, and much like we'd love to go to Colman Noctor as a psychotherapist for children and adolescents, we'd also like to be able to fix it ourselves before it got to the point that we're bringing the child to you. What's the first step?
Well, I think
when we know the child isn't sleeping, or we know the child's upset or whatever.
Well, I think the prevention is better than reaction to it, and I think there is a lot of initiatives. Only today, the ISPCC launched the Shield campaign, which is a really good campaign to kind of have online, supports for people to block any difficult material that they encounter. I think it's a collective response of both schools, parents. I mean, the other study this morning showed that only 15% of parents had no knowledge of their children's behaviour online. That has to change. Again, trying to monitor and surveil it is so difficult. I just heard your previous speaker talking about smart watches. I mean, how do you keep an eye on the iPads, the Xboxes? I would have been on the show a year ago talking about the PC in the corner of the room. That's obsolete now because we have so many different avenues.
Pretty scary, yeah.
But I think for the most important part of today is that if parents go home and say, look, if you encounter any of this stuff, there are websites. There's watchourspace.ie, there's hotline.com, and there's the ISPCC have a text line where it's 5101 if you text bully to that. But what I want parents to say is listen, if you're encountering this online, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop your Facebook. We can have a conversation
But
about
the
this.
first thing, and finally, my guest, before you go, you must know your child. If you can communicate with your child 7 days a week in the normal course of events, you're certainly not going to learn how to communicate until the day he starts getting bullied.
110%.
The principle is about communicating with your children.
It always is, yeah.
All right, my thanks to my guest, the child and adolescent psychotherapist at St Patrick's Hospital, Colman Noctor.